All right, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of mine heart be acceptable in Jehovah's sight. He is our strength and our redeemer, and it is in his name, which is his authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect tonight's message. Aman. Shalom. Todah Yashleh. Anai Kofi. Chelet at servants of Christ. Barak Allah Sham Yehava. Shalom Allah Sham Yehava. Blessings, peace be upon everybody. Thank you to everybody for being on this evening with us. Come on in, come on in. And we're going to get ready to get right into tonight's message. We're still out here camping, so it is dark, so it is dark. Amen. But we're still going to make sure we get this message out. Once again, we give all honor and praise to the Most High. We give all praise and honor to him for my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. You can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. To the moderators, ministerial staff, to SOC, to those that agree with us, those that disagree with us, to those that are here to listen, those that are here to learn, and even those that are here to do whatever, right? We're thankful and grateful for you guys listening in, and we appreciate you so very much. Thank you so much for being on with you. You said you're scared of the dark. I can see that. But we're thankful to everybody being on. Let's say hello to everybody before we get into this. How you doing, Sister Latoya? How you doing, Sister Shantae? How you doing, Truth is Life? Sister Monica, Yasan Ma, Big Roy, everybody. We appreciate you. Thank you for being on. Come on in. And tonight, let's go ahead and just jump right into this. So tonight, we're going to talk specifically about, we're going to say it like this: teach yourself. Teach yourself. And when we say teach yourself, what we're saying is teach yourself as in teach who you are, right? Teach yourself to your child. Teach yourself to your community. Teach yourself to others. Teach yourself. Teach yourself to yourself. Teach yourself. How you doing, Sister Cherise? Right? Let's go into line mode and teach ourselves. How you doing, Sister Beverly? Teach yourself. Now, this is important context and concept to have. How you doing, Anthony? How you doing, Sister Dawn? This is important for us to recognize. Teach yourself. We allow everybody else to teach us about us. We allow everybody to teach us about them, but you don't teach yourself. And you do yourself a disservice. You do your community a disservice. You do others a disservice if you don't teach yourself. If you don't teach yourself. See, the word teach even is talking about a teacher is considered to be a master. If you are going to teach something, you should master it. To master it is to teach it. To teach it is to master it, right? To teach it is to master it. To master it is to teach it. So you are the master, but who's going to be able to own your masters if you're not the teacher, right? That's why Prince changed his name to the symbol, became the artist, right? Even though he was trying to get across the point that that's what they call you when they sign you up on these ridiculous and bogus contracts that you have, right? But you have to own your masters. You have to own the teachers, but you have to own yourself. You have to own your language. You have to own your community. You have to own your culture, right? You have to take some kind of ownership and accountability for what you're teaching. And we send our children away because we were sent away to learn. Think about that. We're sent away from ourselves to learn, hopefully, about ourselves. How you doing, Brother Alton? Right? How you doing, Brother Jermaine? We are sent away from ourselves to learn, and then we wonder why we don't learn ourselves. This is not just our children in school, but our preachers. Our preachers, when they say that they're called to preach, and they get licensed to preach, and then what usually happens is you go to school, they say, go to another college. We're not going to teach you. Go somewhere else. And we want somebody else to teach you, to prepare you for teaching ourselves. It doesn't make sense. Right? It doesn't make sense on its face. So on face value, that type of thought process doesn't really make sense. I'm going to send you away to somebody else so that you'll be able to teach yourselves. I'm not going to teach you at home wrong from right. I'm going to send you to school, and I'm going to tell them to teach you from wrong from right. People who are literally a school system that's designed to cause you to toil, but not to be in your work. Many people went to school and never learned their calling. Is it not interesting? Many people went to church and never learned their calling. But how can you learn your calling if you're going away to learn it? See, watch this. Your calling, the word calling, kletos, even in the Greek, it means to be invited. To call somebody on the phone, the word phone comes from the Greek word phone. The word call comes from the Greek word kletos. You put it together, it means you are invited to a voice. But we say leave the place, right? Leave the home where the phone call is going to come in. Leave that place, leave your place of residence, and go somewhere else to listen to people who don't reside where you reside. How you doing, Sister Tori? And this is when we have a problem. We send everybody else away to get something from somewhere who doesn't reside where we reside, live in what we live in, speak what we speak, talk what we talk, pray what we pray, right? Believe what we believe. But we say go to their school system so that you can learn how to make it and that you can have a better life. So what does a better life equate to? A better life equates to getting away from who you are. How you doing, Concrete Rose One? In our minds, that's what a better life is I'm going to get away from who I am. And the further I get away from who I am, then the better off I'll be. That's problematic behavior. How you doing, Miss Pierce? Right? That's problematic behavior. That's a problematic thought process. Something's wrong with that mentality. I'm going to send you away from who you are so that you can be taught. I'm going to send you out of your community. And that's why your money gets out of your community, because the money gets invested in what somebody thinks is correct. Well, if you haven't taught yourself and then taught that where you are is what needs to be improved, then you will keep making improvements to others, while then those others turn around and say, man, I'm glad you got out of there, because your people really aren't going to get any better. And thank you for the love, right? Like, that's really the conversation that happens. Learn from us and we'll teach you better than what you could learn from yourselves. So what we're talking about tonight is teach yourself, teach you. Who can teach you better than you? Can nobody teach my son about how to make sure he gets out of a generational curse than the one who has trying to break from it himself and has broken free and doesn't want him to ever go back into it. So I can use the experiences that I've had to be able to inform the next generation. Who better to teach him than me? Why would I send him to a school? It's lunacy, it's fallacy, it's foolishness to believe that it's better to send him away from himself. Right? How you doing, Sister Latoya? Right? I'm going to send you away from yourself so you can learn who you are. That's why you want to spend time with others, and then you spend time with others who don't accept you, and you say, why don't they accept me? Because they don't accept you. You haven't been taught yourself, so you don't even realize that you should have never left yourself. How you doing, Sister Nadine? You should have never left who you were. Why are you leaving you to learn you? Just think about it on its face. Is that not cognitive dissonance wrapped up in a nutshell? I don't even have to go that much deeper, right? Like, think about that. I want you to leave you so you'll learn you. How you doing, Brother Henry? How you doing, Jeanette? Right? And let us keep in mind, too, I apologize, let us keep in mind our very own Sister Sonia, who lost a brother. Family's going through some things. Please keep them in prayer. Let us also keep in mind, I'm forgetting the sister's name. I might have to leave here to find it. I apologize. I'll try to remember it tomorrow. I don't want to cut off the line to do it. We'll just keep in prayer one of our sisters in the Georgia area. She's getting ready to have a child, her first child that they said that she wouldn't be able to have, praise Yah. And looks like she's going to have the child in a sovereign manner. So keep her in prayer. She begins to walk this walk diligently. Aman. How you doing, Zion? How you doing, Diane Kelly? Right? You got to teach yourself. You have to teach yourself. You have to teach yourself. Sister Kayla, that's who it is. Sister Kayla. Please keep Sister Kayla and her husband and her baby and her family in prayer. Amen. You have to teach yourself. How you doing, Big Roy? How you doing, Darius? Right? You got to teach yourself. Praise Yah. You haven't been taught yourself. How do you get to be 50 years old and still say, I don't know who I am? Because we've been more concerned about becoming experts in everything else except us. How are you in a marriage 50 years in and still don't like the person you're married to? You two never became one, never knew what a husband was or a wife was. It's because you didn't learn yourself, your community, your laws. How you doing, Nay? Right? How does one have children and can't figure out why the children don't know themselves? Because you never gave them example of somebody who knows themselves. It's time for us to stop learning everybody else and time for us to learn ourselves. Hey, how you doing? Shalom to you. Right? It's time for us to learn ourselves. We're so busy at a 9 to 5 that we haven't taken time out to figure out who we are. Right? Some people are so busy studying everybody else, they haven't studied themselves. Some sermons are so busy making sure that you comprehend how valuable the preacher is, but but you haven't learned that the preacher's value only comes from when you become your greatest self. If I'm preaching a message and you don't improve, it's not worth it. Watch this. If I'm not preaching a message and it doesn't challenge you to grow, then it's not worth it. How you doing, Yehuda? Right? It's Yehuda ben Yisrael. It's best to teach oneself. How you doing, Big Ak? Hopefully you're staying safe out there. It's best to teach oneself, because if you teach yourself, you can watch this. To teach yourself is to know thyself. Don't people say that all the time? Know thyself, proclaim thyself, know thyself, right? Well, if you know thyself, then you should be able to teach thyself. If you know what's in you, then you should be able to teach what's in you. Watch this. And if you can teach what's in you, once again, the teacher is the master. That's why they called him Rabbi. They called him Mora. They would have called him teacher. They would have called him master. I'm doing that. I'm scratching my throat. I didn't even realize it's a habit that I have. I do it without even thinking, right? But teach yourself. Teach yourself. You. How you doing, Tamaya? When's the last time that you made sure that you opened the book on you? When's the last time that you written the journal and read back who you are? How you doing, Sister Stella? Right? Why is it that our confidence in who we are and our blessings in who we are and our becoming who we are and our being thankful and grateful for who we are, et cetera, it comes from us going into a place of being in a position to where we believe that we have to make sure that somebody else can qualify us. I'm better qualified to take on the world because I teach. I learned what they said about me. Yeah, start with the man in the mirror, right? Teach yourself. Why is it valuable that you help your community? When you learn that, then you'll help your community. But if you don't think you are valuable enough to help your community, if you don't think you're a conduit to something to grow, if you don't believe that you're going to make things better and greater, then guess what? You won't teach. So teach yourself. You got to be able to teach yourself. Teach thyself. Know thyself. Once again, what is the word know? K-N-O-W. K-N-O-W, to know something, it literally means to be intimate with something. Oh, sorry. Right? To know something means to be intimate with something. Right? It literally means that. Right? To know something means to be intimate with it. So if you don't know yourself, it's because you're not intimate with yourself. If you don't know how to cook, it's because you're not intimate with cooking. If you don't know ingredients, because you're not intimate with ingredients. If you don't know how to make your community better, it's because you're not intimate with your community and how to make it better. Hey, how you doing, Sister Shima? Know thyself. Be intimate with thyself. We don't have to get approval from everybody else. Get approval from your community. Now, here's the question. What is going to be the standard for the community? There you go. You even got to learn yourself to judge yourself. Amen. And if you knew who you really were and you followed after the Spirit and you knew who that was, you would stop condemning yourself. That's a great point. A lot of our condemnation and judgments when it comes to one another is because we're doing it based off upon somebody else. We talk about this all the time. The Black community this, the Black community that. What does the Black community own? You make all this money to where you make the United States of America go around, but what do you own? Why do you still have the same percentage of wealth that you had in 1865? How you doing, Brother Vincent? Think about it. You got the same percentage of wealth of the United States of America. How you doing, Diane Keller? You got the same percentage of wealth, but you make the country run, right? You were making the country run when you were officially a chattel slave. You made the country run when you're officially a chattel slave, but you are unofficially living in it. I'm glad you're doing well, right? This is like we don't teach ourselves. Why do you think Malcolm X was great? You think Malcolm X was great because he taught what everybody else taught? You think he was great because he taught you, he taught yourself, he taught himself, right? Why do you think that Lumumba, do you even know these names? Lumumba, right nowadays, there's PFO Lumumba. right? Sankara, Nzinga, Nefertiti, Tai, Khalifa, right? Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, Dr. Amos Welsing, I'm sorry, Dr. Amos Wilson, rather, Dr. Joy DeGruy, right? These are people who taught themselves. They taught themselves, not just taught themselves as far as they're the teacher of themselves. I'm talking about they taught themselves. They learned who they were. You said Malcolm X was great. Well, if you don't think Malcolm X was great, hey, I believe him to be a great person. Right? This message doesn't have to be for everybody. Right? You don't have to agree with it. But for those of you who think Malcolm X had some great things to be able to say, to speak, to be faithful to his wife, to be faithful to people, to make sure that he was not going to turn in those, he had enough stuff because he was from the streets too. So he had enough sense to make sure that he wasn't a snitch, even the very people would turn around and kill him and things like that. Yeah, I believe him to be great. I believe it's great to be able to teach people that, hey, if you go into a diner and you don't get to dine, then by definition, you're not a diner just because you're in a diner. And therefore, you comprehend what's going on with America. And just as he taught us, I'm not a Republican, I'm not a Democrat, I'm not even an American. And I got a sense enough to know it because if I was an American, I would enjoy the fruits of America. So when you know yourself, you don't worry about if somebody else is worried about who you are, who you subscribe to or prescribe to or whatever, especially when you know the truth about yourself. Right? Malcolm X, by the way, he said, look, whites can help us, but they can't join us. Why? He said this was the reason, right? Because everybody want to go, Malcolm X was great. The reason why Malcolm X said whites can help us, but they can't join us is simple. He said that whites can't help us because there can't first be black-white unity until there's first black unity. He wanted to make sure you were straight. How you doing, Iskov, y'all still? Right? He wanted to make sure you were straight. You can't love somebody and you don't love yourself. No man has ever cherished himself and hates his wife. If you hate your wife, then you don't love yourself. How you gonna get married to somebody else or have conversation with somebody else or try to show love to somebody else and you don't love yourself? How do you love somebody without loving yourself? Yeah, Muhammad Ali said the same thing. And by the way, Muhammad Ali had a Jewish, right? It's people who don't think we don't like Jews. Muhammad Ali had a Jewish trainer, one of the most famous trainers of all time, right? It wasn't going to let anybody talk to Angelo any kind of way. Say when you know that about your community, then you won't let somebody try to tell you, oh, well, he was racist because he was NOI. He said, no, I'm intelligent. That's what Malcolm X used to say. He said, I'm not racist, I'm intelligent. If somebody's doing something to me and they keep doing it and they won't even admit that they're doing it, then it's intelligent for me to take care of myself. It's intelligent for me to make sure that my family is protected. That's intelligence. That's not hate. If you don't come up on the block trying to shoot up the block, then I'm not going to try and shoot back. That's intelligence too. Intel, by the way, is information. We've got information. You're acting like we just made this up. We're reporting to you. How you doing, Minister Tamara? He said, step from under their umbrella and step into our reign. There you go. I like that. That's kingdom speech, right? So it's intelligence. Once again, what is the information that you have? Even an IQ test is just what? An intelligence quotient, right? IQ. What is that saying? That says you have certain information, right? That's all that means is you got certain information. So if you have certain information and somebody else doesn't have it, you have a different type of IQ. There's somebody that can't read or write, but they can farm. They can read land. That means that they have better IQ when it comes to farming. Don't get into the habit of saying that you have to be what somebody else says you have to be. And there you go. Malcolm told you, having knowledge of yourself, it makes you dangerous. That's one of the reasons you got to come out. If you're going to know thyself and be intimate with yourself, you can't be in a place where knowing yourself is criminal. Yeah, it's based upon that Eurocentric viewpoint, right? So you can't be in a position where knowing yourself is what? Is criminal. And that's the problem, is you're sending your child to a school to where for them to learn about who they are is a criminal offense. Of course, they're not going to learn who they are. Right. Do you guys know, for example, y'all ever seen brothers walking up on the street, wherever it is, right? New York, Chi-Town, everybody walking with a limp, Miami, right? Los Angeles, wherever, right? Everybody walking with a limp and you see another brother, what do? You don't say what's up. If you don't know him, you don't even dap him, whatever. What do? You go like this. And you keep on moving, right? You don't even break stride, really. You keep going. You see a brother? You keep moving, right? Why do you do that? Does anybody even know why you do that? Do you know why do you do that? The reason why you do that is because that there were people that were coming against us. Because we started knowing ourselves, we started making money, we started coming together as a community, we started putting stuff together all over the United States of America, and people didn't like it. So they actually started to make laws. They started putting things on the books. Some of them still exist, by the way. They started putting things on the books to say that we could not talk to one another. We couldn't talk. If two black men had a conversation and say, hey, what's up, man? How you doing, bro? All this and that or whatever. It was an affront. It was an attack on society. And so they said, you're not allowed to do that. And so brothers would still speak, but instead of, using their lips to speak, they would just go, and that was a way of saying, hey, we in this together. We still gonna have the meeting. We're still gonna make sure we do what we're supposed to do. See, they criminalized, and you're still living some of the stuff. That's why we do that, because you couldn't speak to each other. It was against the law. How you doing, Tracy? You thought that was your main man, Malik Shabazz, Malcolm Little. Mm-hmm. Malcolm Malik Shabazz, Minister Malcolm. Yeah, that was what it was, right? We literally, it was bad if you saw brothers trying to talk to one another. But in our culture, how great, how constitutional, how wonderful and pleasant it is that brethren dwell together in unity. But your unity is something that attacks the system. We were talking about women protecting babies today, and people lost their mind in the live session. And some of our people did, because we think through their prism, we think through a different lens. But we were talking about making sure you protect your baby, because the Most High said he knew your baby before you even knew your husband. Why? Because you're so busy learning somebody else rather than loving yourself. By the way, see, people will say this. I say, when did abortion start? Somebody try to get real slick on you and be like, they actually started in Kemet and blah, blah, as if Kemet is always our culture, right? Because, all black folk come from Kemet. Amen. Protect yours. That's right. But if you really want to know what abortions are the way you do them, they come from chattel slavery times. So where modern scientists, the modern science father of psychology and the modern father of health and all this stuff that they call it, they will say their fathers. Guess what they did? They used to reach inside the wombs of chattel slaves, people they didn't even consider to be people, and they used to rip their bodies out to study and do research on them. You're mad and angered by the fact they did it at the Holocaust, but they did it to you, and then they got you to do it to yourself. That's what Willie Lynch said he would do. He said that if we teach this thing right, after a year, they'll begin to do it to themselves. There you go. Somebody beat me to it. Somebody's already thinking the same path. Willie Lynch said that. Right? If we teach this thing right, they'll do it to themselves. And here's the wild part, is that you don't realize what they did. See, was good for there's an old saying, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. What's good for the goose is good for the gander, and you don't get it. See, people think it's always about black, white. You don't comprehend that if they were doing it to us, they'll do it to you. I study what they did to us so I can inform you before it becomes too late for you to do. You don't realize that the overseer is nothing more than the house Negro. The house Negro ain't nothing more than the overseer. They'll do it to you too. How you doing, Aphrodisiac? They'll set you up too. They'll lie to you too. They'll mistreat you too. And then they'll tell you got a victim mentality. They'll call you a snowflake as soon as they finish with you. They'll lift you up and say, go, they'll teach you, go shoot up a place in Buffalo. They'll defend you for what you did and say, hey, we can't say that this is white supremacy, blah, blah. Even though the person that shot him up, it says that I studied what the people who were telling you it's not white supremacy. I studied what they said. But now that he's got sentenced, where they at? I'm not saying they're going to be copycats and there aren't going to be people marching on his behalf. There already are. But what I'm trying to tell you is that where they at for him now? Now that they taught him that, they had him go out and shoot up all those people. How you doing, Cream? Thanks for being on. Where are they at now? Are they there for him? That's being part of the community, Odessa. Are they there for him? Where are they at? Now he locked up behind bars, killed all those people. He got to deal with that for the rest of his life. Where his friends at? It's just like when they did it to you on the street. Your boy said, "Go ahead, carry my weapon for me real quick. Put it in your book bag, and don't be a snitch." You got caught. Now you can't be a snitch. Now you serving 25 years. And then when you get out, maybe your boy's alive to help you out. Maybe he cares about you still. Maybe he don't. See, they're doing the same thing. It's doing the same thing. We taught y'all the other day that when you're talking about gangs, the first gangs, they started in Greece. They started in Rome. The Roman senators, just like they do today, they had people that would follow in the streets, and the people on the streets did their bidding. That's why you have informants. Informants will kill people too until it's time to catch the person they're looking for. They got license to kill for real. They got a license to kill for real. They'll shoot you up because you ain't the main one. They'll let a whole bunch of people die, but they're looking for that RICO charge. They got informants that are hired there the whole time. I told you the other day, Mussolini, who you guys think was anti-America, he was paid by the CIA. I'm sorry, he was paid by the FBI, or was it the CIA? I don't know if the CIA existed yet. But he was paid by America to do what he did. You think he's part of the Axis powers because he's not officially part of the Allied powers. He was paid by America. That's how we got in control. Papa Doc, Haitian. He used the CIA and France against his own people. He got paid. He was paid. His son, Baby Doc. If you don't know who I'm talking about, do the research. They were paid. Jesse Jackson was told when he ran for president, they faked y'all out. They were using Jesse Jackson as a front. They used Muhammad Ali as a front. He didn't know it, but they used him too. They sent him over to Iran. They got y'all to think, oh, they helped to be able to get these prisoners and American prisoners out. Look at the great stuff. They told Jesse Jackson to call y'all African Americans. Meanwhile, they're putting crack in the streets. Meanwhile, Ronald Reagan is putting crack all over the place. Yeah, it's an inside job. It's controlled. The president of the United States was invested in crack being in your community. And while you guys were sitting up there saying 13% of the population commits 50% of the crime, you missed the fact that crack is in your communities too, and your trailer parks. Y'all got heroin addicts too. Y'all got people running around doing anything they can, strange for some change, doing something strange for some change. Y'all got them too. Y'all got people out here doing their own version of lean out there too. You got to be careful. Some of these places, especially in Florida, but I think it's other places too. If you see people walking around and going to these parties and they got a gallon jug and it looks like water, that ain't water. That's experimentation. You know it better when you see the NyQuil, but you don't realize that they're doing the same thing with that water bottle. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. If you think that it's all right and acceptable for us in society, guess what? It's only a matter of time before it's going to affect you, because do unto others as you want done on yourself. For this is the law and the prophets. That's how it works. And it's been prophesied that this would work this way. Yep, racketeering still goes on. Redlining still goes on. People selling slaves, right? Whether you want to talk about it in prison, whether you want to talk about it with your taxes, or whether you want to talk about it with sex slaves, or whether you want to talk about your children's organs coming up missing. Sugar was paid to a messed up Jamaican society. Drugs, guns were given to the ghetto kids. Yeah, I'm actually still learning about that. I want to actually teach on that one day. I'm still trying to do some research on that. I heard about that from when I was a little child. I wish I had listened to the stories. I would have probably been more informed, But that's real. Like, they have this stuff everywhere. Sankara in Africa was betrayed by his right-hand man because they were building schools, they were building hospitals, they were getting education, they were doing stuff on a level. They said they weren't going to mess with the West. They didn't need Western money, any of that. They were straight. So the West got together and they paid his right-hand man. And his right-hand man was somebody who his parents loved. And so Sankara's parents, to the day that they died, were just sitting there saying, "We love you, we forgive you. We just want an apology. You killed our son." You said it happened in Miami. Somebody went in for plastic surgery and came out without her kidney. Yeah. And she's blessed that that's all they took. Especially a lot of these places, you don't go to doctors for that. Yeah, we're so busy fighting amongst each other that we don't realize they got you pinned against each other. Teach yourself, right? Gaddafi, another one, right? But the list goes on and on. We can keep on going, right? Teach yourself. Look at the story of Geronimo. Y'all got the story of an old man that was just sitting there, was nice to white folk and dressed in part and this and that or whatever. See what got him to that place. How they crushed his spirit. Look at how they crushed the spirit of Toussaint Louverture, who had victory and still went back to France and then got killed. He's like, well, we already beat them. We defeated them. We got this. They'll look at us eye to eye now. They'll help us out. They won't try to attack us. They won't try to trick us. Sure enough, they put him in prison and they killed him. Thanks for being part of the community. OKQCCM. Thank you. Right. So I'm just trying to say, learn yourself. Learn yourself. Who are you? Who are your people? George Washington can't be the standard. They told you George Washington never told a lie. George Washington, while they were telling you that, he was laughing while he was ripping the teeth out of his own slaves. He lost all his teeth by age 30. Why? Because he couldn't even eat correct. He couldn't even eat correctly. Why is he my standard? I'm not going to learn about George Washington. I've learned enough, right? I'm not going to be a gentleman anymore. Anytime I see somebody talking about ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to be a gentleman. I don't want anybody in the community being a lady or gentleman, because gentlemen, they are slave owners. And ladies, they go ahead and they kill babies. That's why they had to have the Casual Killing Act. They had to come up with the act because these slave owners' wives were so tired of seeing their husbands just sleeping around with everybody and having children that looked more like their husbands than their own children did, and having therefore some right to the throne and some right to money. Some people actually won cases in this. Look it up. Some people won cases where slave children actually were able to say, hey, look, I'm actually from so-and-so, so therefore I have more right than anybody else does. And they were so tired of it. You said you got a quick question? Sure, you can throw it out there if you want real quick, right? I got to get ready to take my leave. And how you doing? Was it Strawberry Kisses 22? Thanks for coming on over to this tonight, right? But they were so tired of watching. It's actually time for me to take my leave. I got to teach class. I got to teach sovereignty in a little bit, so I got to take my leave anyways. That's what I'm saying. If it's real quick, you can ask it real quick, and then I'll try to deal with it in the chat real quick. But we got to get ready to roll out. So. But they were so tired of seeing that they started killing little babies. They were killing these little babies. Your people. They were killing you off so much that they actually came up with a law. They called it the Casual Killing Act. And it was, if you ever have to discipline a slave, it's okay to discipline them because you know they deserve to be disciplined. So if you kill them and they act of duty, you know, the act of what you're supposed to do is your duty to be able to make sure you beat the mess out of them. You know, there's stuff like drapetomania. If a slave tries to escape, they're crazy. You got to beat them. And there's also people who talk about the father, what they call the father of modern psychology. He used to teach that if you beat somebody, you should beat them until you see the white meat. That's where you get that from. Beat them to the white meat show. You beat them to the white meat show because they were black, because they were crazy. Therefore, if you beat them to the whiteness show, it means that you were actually beating them into sanity. How you doing? Is it Meech? Is it Meese or Michi? Douglas, thank you for being on. Appreciate you. So I'm just saying, learn yourself. Learn yourself. Who are you? They can't be your standard. Yeah, a lot of stuff comes from that, right? Beat them to the white meat show. You got to work twice as hard to get half as much. You ain't in your right mind. That was us telling each other, boy, you ain't in your right mind. You in the slave master's mind. That was us that came up with that. King Cotton. Cotton is king. There's a march by John Philip Sousa. You call him Sousa, right? Yep, barrel of laughs, because you monkeys. The peanut gallery, the black folk that had to sit up around, they couldn't sit on the ground, so they had to sit around. Now people pay great money for those seats, but you had to sit up there. That was the peanut gallery. So learn yourself. As we talked about this rising, don't be in the cancel culture where they cancel you. Learn yourself. Who are you? What did you bring? Because here's the last thing I'll leave you with, and then we really got to go. You ready for this? Everything you did was excellence. Well, let me be careful because some people say, "Oh, well, this I can see Idi Amin and I can see this person, and Shaka was great, but he did this and blah." Okay, look, you were kings and queens. Now you call yourself Nigg, you know what? But you used to call yourself Negus and Negus and Negas and Niger and Niger. My son was actually asking about this today. We had some conversation about this. They knew you were great. That those words meant that you were royalty, you were kings, you were queens, you were princes, you were princesses. It was something they used all the way from the east coast of Africa all the way to the west coast. And now we think of it as being bad. You said, how can consciousness coexist outside the physical neurological pathways of your brain? Well, consciousness, as far as what most people think about it, you think about it from a Greco-Roman mentality, right? I don't think about it from that mentality, so I don't think that consciousness only exists or something exists only within the plot of your brain, because I think there's things that are bigger than you to your brain, including ways that your body thinks, because you don't just think with the brain, correct? You have a gut feeling, and if your gut health is off, you won't be able to think correctly. You walk a certain way. I don't agree with that walk. I don't like that walk. Right. I apologize. I didn't see the question. You say, I don't feel like that. Right. You say, I don't think that way. That's the brain. But you know the difference between the mind and the brain. By the way, even if you want to talk about psychology, the word psychology, psyche, in the Greek, it literally means soul. Ology is talking about the study of. And if you talk about IST, then you talk about proficiency. Therefore, to be a psychologist, you have to be somebody proficient at the study of the soul. So you don't even think only with your brain. So that in of itself doesn't even make sense in our culture. But I get it from somebody else's thought process saying that this is the only theoretical way that something can exist. And this is what we feel as far as empirical data, because we're the empire. Therefore, we get to set what the data is and what the IQ is and what you should be tested for. If that's what your thought process is, then you'll think like that. And look, to each their own. Every culture can think differently. There's some people who have gods, some people have deists, some people have deities, some people have neters, some people have Euregius, some people have Elohim, some people have Allah. They're all different. I know you think they're the same. They're not. They're all different. You can't even think about somebody's theology without first thinking about their culture, because culture informs everything. You can't have proper interpretation unless culture is added. You said, but for real, how can you keep thinking after our body dies? For me, it's simple. I don't have time to go into it. I got to take my leave. But for me, it's simple. I believe that thought existed. My thoughts existed before I even existed. You know why? Because there's such thing as DNA memory. That's scientific. Even scientists believe that there's such thing as DNA memory. People who hold on to things that happen. A baby can be informed by something. Watch this. If somebody has a bad thought, an impure thought, something that gives them trauma, and the egg of the woman holds on to it, right? It can be 5 years later, if that trauma is never dealt with, the egg is informed by that trauma. So therefore, when the egg comes into contact with the sperm and it grows inside the child and it's birth, guess what? They're birthed with trauma. Somebody might inform, somebody else might say, we would call it a generational curse. You might say that it's trauma that's been able to make its way through the mother. Now, you might have to find a way of only explaining it through physiology, right? But at the end of the day, we're talking about the same thing. Oh, you know what? I got to get off here. I'm already late. I'm thinking it's 9 o'clock. We're supposed to be on at 8:30, y'all. I apologize. I gotta take my leave. Thank you for being on. Please check out my wife, the Honorable Maya, on TikTok, YouTube, or website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. Sorry, y'all. Thank you for being on. Appreciate you. I gotta roll out. My apologies. Let's go ahead and make this work. My bad. I'm thinking it's another class. Sovereignty starts at 8:30. My bad, y'all. Okay. Take care. Remember, as always, this is Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant to Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, but being a voice to the voiceless and speaking the unspoken, until I have the great privilege and opportunity and responsibility of being in front of you all again. Please remember, as always, shout out that you are loved, you're necessary, you are majestic, you're fearfully and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in the system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, family. Peace.